coronavirus reporting continues to focus on Europe and the USA. Servus TV takes a film team on a search for the truth in countries from which nothing or very little has been reported so far. For example, to Africa, the continent that the WHO predicted would experience mass deaths of unimagined proportions if the population were not vaccinated in time. How have people's lives been affected by the pandemic? And measures such as lockdowns and travel bans in these countries. What is the situation in Central America? Guatemala is the most populous country in Central America. What measures are being taken and have been taken here? More about that later on. Coronavirus, in search of the truth. After the broadcast of part 2 of our documentary, we were convinced that the issue of coronavirus would leave the headlines. In many countries, large parts of the population have made use of the offer of vaccinations, and therapeutic measures have been significantly improved. In Germany, even the number of intensive care beds was massively reduced. An especially built coronavirus emergency hospital in Berlin with 1,000 beds was closed again. Even at the height of the pandemic, no one was ever treated here. The same situation in Austria. Intensive care beds were also reduced here compared to 2020. Freedom Day was celebrated in Denmark, the Netherlands, and England. The governments of these countries have partially repealed all coronavirus measures, as have many states in the USA. However, in late autumn 2021, for example in Austria, the pressure on the so-called unvaccinated was significantly increased. First, the so-called 3G regulation, then the 2.5G regulation, then the 2G regulation were ordered. This led to large protests among the population. Finally, Austria became the first country in Europe to impose a lockdown for the unvaccinated. A general vaccination obligation for the entire population from the age of 12 is to be imposed by law at the beginning of 2022. Austria's ex-chancellor Schallenberg: "We will tighten the reins for the unvaccinated. Christmas and winter will be uncomfortable for the unvaccinated." Constitutional lawyer Heinz Mayer from Austria: "Fines alone will probably not be enough. There will have to be further consequences. The most likely will be forced isolation." And World Medical President Montgomery speaks of a tyranny of the unvaccinated over the vaccinated, and concludes, "We have been trying for 3 to 4 months to convince people to get vaccinated without much success. Now we have to get a bit tougher." Is vaccination the only key to success? And what role does the prevalence among the population of natural infections play? What is the secret of many poorer countries that have comparatively few coronavirus deaths despite few medical options? Is the discredited drug ivermectin really completely ineffective? Where is the drug being used for treatment? And what are doctors' experiences with it?
Note, this is not the ivermectin used on animals, which is available. This ivermectin is for human use.
On the other hand, they developed a new drug, which are going to cost maybe 1,000 times more expensive than ivermectin.
What is the role of the WHO in the fight against the pandemic? And what happens when leading members of this body criticize the strategy's approach?
And according to this study, about 10,000 people could have been saved if Italy was prepared.
What is the view of leading medical experts on the vaccination of children and adolescents?
You're right. The 7 children who died had serious illnesses, and the last child was very overweight, so they had considerable risk factors. A healthy child has not died so far.
Has the population been lulled into a false sense of security after vaccination?
But these are not vaccinations in my eyes. These are experimental products that are being marketed completely illegally.
And why do we hear so little about the vaccine victims in our society?
We have over 1 million entries in the database. Of the suspected side effects, most are severe, but we have no idea how high the real figure is. I wrote my will.
Professor Martin Hadich, doctor and virologist, embarks once again on a journey around the world for Servus TV. His mission to get answers on the spot to the most pressing questions of our time. The physician is a specialist in hygiene and microbiology, infectiology and tropical medicine, virology and infection epidemiology. He has a practice for tropical and travel medicine, a vaccination center in Austria, and runs a large diagnostic laboratory in Hanover. Leading physicians and scientists are giving exclusive television interviews for the first time. Corona, In Search of the Truth, Part 3.